Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Spontaneous Brilliance Podcast. So glad to be with you here today. And today I thought I would explore the concept that is a Marioism for those of you that are aware of the book Spontaneous Brilliance and the Metaphorical Metaphysical Guide to Life. One of the great in acting as in life truisms that came from Mario Saletti is you can't play a negative. I'm sure lots and lots of acting teachers say that. I've said it for the last, 35 years, but I got it originally from Mario. And what you can't play a negative means is, as an actor, you can only play what your character wants. You can't play what your character doesn't want, because then you're just static. You're making choices out of fear on behalf of that character. You're trying to stay away from things, or you're playing the character with a knowledge of what's gonna go wrong at the end of the play, and that just makes for a very negative performance of a character that is probably not that. So us in life, if we are playing a negative, that means that we're focusing on what we don't want. You can't take action in the direction of what you don't want. And acting, as in life, is active. It's about what you do. In acting teaching, we are teaching people to know what their objective is, know what their intention is in every moment. And in life, we are teaching ourselves to focus on what is that objective? What is that intention? Where do I want to be? Not where do I not want to be, right? Because what is that? That's blocking. You're just trying to stop something from happening, and you set yourself into a cycle of blocking. You set yourself into a cycle of fear. Remember that everything in acting as in life is about finding the love. When you find the love, that's finding what you want. That is finding what you do want. And when you embrace it, that's how you move toward it. That's how you know what your objective is. But if you find the hate, if you find the disdain, if you find the fear, that's only going to give you the roadmap to blocking, to staying where you are, or trying to turn around and go backwards. Because when we get into fear, that's when we start saying, oh, wait, I want things to be the way they used to be. Well, that is, newsflash, never, ever, ever going to happen. There is no being what it used to be. There is only being what it can become. You can try to play what you don't want. Most of us spend a great deal of energy avoiding what we don't want rather than pursuing what we do want. In life, we tend to focus our energy and our attention and our powerful imagination on those things that we're afraid of. We envision the things that might go wrong, or what we might lose, or what bad things others might be thinking about us. And we spend that time creating a reality in the moment that we're in that just holds a bunch of what we don't want. We fail to realize, we fail to remember that our imagination is an incredibly powerful tool. It is a creative tool, and it's not in charge by itself. Our imagination is not in control of what we do. It is something that we use to create. It is a way that we think. It is not in charge of what we think. It is a tool. It is the way that we are painting onto the canvas of our lives, right? It is the paintbrush. It's the bridge between our divine intention, there we go again, and the life that we experience. As actors, we know that our imagination is our tool. As humans, we can get caught in becoming victims of our imagination. When we put that energy into explaining to ourselves why we can't have what we want, that passion that we feel inside, that dream that we have, when we tell ourselves that we shouldn't or can't or don't really want to pursue our dream because it might be hard or it might be tricky or it might be difficult. When we deny ourselves that thing that we love, that's when we end up in fear and frustration and disappointment. And then that's all that we are just sort of swimming in. So how do we turn that around as human characters on the great stage of life? How do we purposefully utilize the imagination to help us achieve our goals? So how do we purposefully utilize our imagination to help us achieve those desires and those goals? Well, we focus our attention on what we do want. We focus our attention on thinking, deciding, and acting based on that desire, trusting that what we do want is already there. As in the words of Anthony Hopkins, we just have to be smart enough to catch up to it. It already exists. In order for an actor to authentically play a character, we have to know what that character loves. So in order for you to authentically show up as your soulful self intends, you must know what you love. In order to fully show up on this planet as the glorious character that we came here to be, do, and share, we must fully embrace the love at the center of our being and express it in the most authentic way possible. That means that when you know what you love, when you know what you want, when you know what you desire, that is not there to just be a dream that doesn't come to fruition. It's there to inspire you. It's there to give you a roadmap of where you are going to take baby steps and big steps in the direction of. That was grammatically really frightening as a sentence, but you get what I mean, right? If you know what you desire, which, by the way, you do, whether you're acknowledging it or owning it or pushing it away or not, you still know what's in your heart of hearts. You know what's in your dreams. You know what your desire is. And when you lean into that, then you have your roadmap. Abraham Hicks says, when you know what you don't want, then you know what you do want, right? We're not here to just revel in experiencing what we don't want and kind of, narrating that and saying, oh yeah, it sucks to be me, right? We're not here for that. Nobody's here for that. When you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, but that identifying of what you don't want is not so that you can go on focusing on that. Stop focusing on what isn't. Focus on what is and what is yet to be that is in alignment with that desire. That's how we get there. That is how we show up authentically. That is how we live the life that we intended to live. We play full out in pursuit of the desire of the character that we are here in human form as. And so I know I've talked many times about when I work with an actor and they're like they're doing something funky with their hands and it's a habit of the person. If I want them to stop doing that, if I tell them what they're doing and ask them to stop, it's just going to lock them down. That's what they're going to be paying attention to, is whether or not they're doing that funky thing with their hands. So instead, I will work with the actor to say, what do you think the character's mannerisms are? What do you think the character's particular way of dealing with their hands is? Or is there a prop that they like to play with or whatever? I will find some way for them to have an intention, have an expression that is in alignment with the character instead of something that is a default out of fear. Because a lot of times, especially novice actors, they'll be doing things nervously with their hands or with their body that they don't really realize they're doing. but pointing it out is not the way to get them to stop, right? Just saying, don't do that anymore. They probably didn't even know they were doing it in the first place. It's the same with us as human beings on the great stage of life. We don't notice because we don't require ourselves to, but I'm going to ask us to shift this. I'm going to ask us to shift that when we notice that we are focused on the thing that we don't want, that we're going to reframe. Okay? So focusing on what is putting us into gratitude. We're not focusing on what's missing. We're focusing on all that we have. That puts us into gratitude. What am I grateful for that is here? Okay? We want to step into gratitude. That's one step along the way of playing the positive instead of the negative, right? Playing the love, right? Look around you. What do you love? What do you see that you are grateful for? Stay in anticipation. In other words, stop focusing on what was and start focusing on what's coming. What is that desire out there? And if you start to allow yourself to feel the anticipation of it arriving in your life, and you start playing with your imagination, your powerful, beautiful, glorious tool of the imagination in that way, then you're going to be moving toward the positive. You're not going to be focused on the negative. So use obstacles as inspiration. Stop focusing on the pain, the obstacles, the challenges. Start focusing on the gift, the reward for transcending, the joy of the success of passing that obstacle, or the joy of the success of wherever you are in the journey of that obstacle. The challenge, right? Enjoy the challenge. Embrace the obstacle. Allow it to be inspiration because it's an offer into your life. Remember that. All obstacles are offers, right? It's here for you to grow and learn and achieve from. That is where your incredibly powerful imagination can really shine. Use your imagination to envision what you desire. Stop focusing on what could go wrong. Focus on what will go right, because that's what your imagination is for, is to envision what the yes looks like. To yes and this whole process. You can't play a negative and be saying yes. And you can't play a negative and be yes-anding the situation, not honestly, not truthfully, right? Because as soon as you say, yes, I acknowledge that, I accept, I acknowledge this is a thing, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And this is where I want to be instead of here, right? Once we say that's where I want to be instead of here, stop focusing on here. Start focusing on where you want to be. And there is a quote, a Neville Goddard quote, "The longing you feel is not lack, it's prophecy." Ooh. What if that quote is the only truth we have to embrace in order to have everything we desire, in order to understand everything in a positive, forward-moving light rather than looking at it as a negative, right? Remember Shakespeare says there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? From Hamlet. Well, if the longing that you feel is not lack, it's prophecy. What that's meaning is that feeling that you have, the desire that you have, isn't about proclaiming what is missing in your life. It isn't about making you sorry for what you don't have. That's there to foreshadow or prophesize what is to come, what you are headed for. Your soulful self is what is igniting that desire in you. It's the player trying to point the character down the road of the most beautiful experiential path. You're here to experience the love, the shift in perspective, the shift from focusing on what is not desired to what is desired is what empowers you as a conscious creator to create the reality that you want. You use your imagination consciously. You use your focus consciously. Let's not play the game that thinking just because we know that, just because we know that we need to be focused on the positive, we can't play a negative. Our choices are where our power comes from, and our imagination is that powerful tool. Just because somebody like me, for instance, says this in this podcast, I say, okay, it's just like this. You just focus, you stop focusing on this and you start focusing on that. You can't play a negative. You need to know what you desire, and you need to make positive choices that are in alignment with that desire. Just because somebody knows that doesn't mean that they do it all the time. Doesn't mean that they're perfect at aligning their life with that on a 24/7 basis. So you are not bad at this or wrong or deficit in any way if you're not practicing this. But it's something that will come with time, because remember, creativity is a process. It is not a trait. Some people are not born creative and other people born not creative. All of us are unique creative geniuses. All of us are creating our reality. We are becoming conscious creators. So if you are practicing conscious creation, the operative word there is conscious, because we're creating all the time, 24/7, whether we realize it or not. So choosing your focus, choosing which perspective you are focused on, whether it's the what's missing or what's yet to be, whether it's the what I don't have or what I desire. Choosing which you focus on is how you get into that practice. And it's something that you have to catch yourself in. When you focus on the negative, you will. We all do it. I do it. I guarantee you I will do it about this podcast. That's why I make these podcasts and walk away. Because if I focus on what I didn't say, I would never put them out there. If I focus on what I didn't do or what might have been wrong, I would not be here. I've said this to you before. If I waited till I wasn't nervous, afraid, concerned, didn't have any thoughts like that, I would never do anything. So I have the beautiful humans around me that I trust. I hand it off to Shelley and Corey, and I walk away because I will focus on what I didn't do. I know myself well enough to know that. And I've had to learn a process over time of letting go of my attachment to that perfectionism, to all of those things that can come along with our attachment to the end result of our creations and our attachment to what other people think. But when you catch yourself, then reframe. Don't beat yourself up if you get off track. That would be looking back, right? Just reframe and refocus on what you want to create. Remember that another truism in acting as in life is that it's all about making the other guy look good, right? Remember that one? Well, what that means is that when our focus is too much on ourselves and what we're worried about, what other people think of us, what other people think of what we did, blah, blah, blah. When we're too focused on that, then it keeps us in fear and it keeps us contracted and it keeps us not making forward motion. But if we can focus on the people that we are surrounded by, if we can focus on helping to improve their circumstance, their experience, that's what can keep us moving forward. The reason I do all of Spontaneous Brilliance is because I really want to help people. I really want to help all of us understand that we are all super duper perfect and valuable. We are here for a reason. We are here with our unique creative genius. And when I get scared, when I get nervous, when I get stopped, when I start focusing on what isn't as opposed to what is, that's what I remind myself of. there are people out there that will benefit from all the things that we're building in Spontaneous Brilliance. And there are people out there that I help when I help them bring their dream, their desire to fruition. When I work with coaching clients or consulting, or I work in an educational system or whatever, those are things that I do that help. And if I worried about everything I said and everything I did, and I let that stop me, if I let myself focus on what I haven't achieved as opposed to what I still want to achieve, or even if I let myself get stuck on things I achieved in the past, that's focusing on something that isn't, something that was, instead of what will be. So if we focus on anything other than what is the desire that is calling me right now, then we are on some level we're blocking. So I'm going to invite you to notice what you're noticing, as Mary Morrissey would say. In every moment, be willing to check yourself. Am I thinking about this negatively? Because I can't play a negative. Nothing is going to move forward from thinking about this negatively. So am I thinking about this negatively? Then reframe. That's all conscious creation is. Acknowledging the creative power that you have and using your powerful imagination like the wand that it is to magically bring into focus what you truly desire, what you truly love, what you truly want. Just reframe and refocus and remember that you are amazing. You are a unique creative genius, and whatever that desire is that is burning inside you, even if the flame has gotten really tiny, it is precious. It is sacred. I call it your sacred purpose a lot. It is sacred. So treat it with respect and honor it and nurture it and allow it. And when you start to doubt, reframe, okay? And if you need help reframing, find somebody who will help you reframe. Email me. I'm right there with you. I am right there with you. All right, my friends, just reframe, refocus on what you want to create and allow that powerful imagination to do its thing. All right? And in the meantime, while you're on your way to your beautiful desires, have a beautiful, glorious, blessing-filled week, and I will talk to you again soon. The Spontaneous Brilliance Podcast is brought to you by Miracle Communications Group. Our producer is Michelle Oneida. Sound engineer is Corey Michaels at Corey Michaels Productions. Music is composed by Rex Miller. And I'm your host, Sandra Kavanaugh. You can learn more about me and all things Spontaneous Brilliance at sandrakavanaugh.com or spontaneousbrilliance.com. And please join the conversation here at the Spontaneous Brilliance Podcast by emailing us at podcast@spontaneousbrilliance.com.